Chris Brown, Steve Tasker with you. Pleased to be joined now by the man who runs the QB Summit out in sunny California and has a summer tour starting, which you can check out at qbsummitcamp.com. It is Josh Allen's offseason quarterback trainer. It is Jordan Palmer joining us on the show. Jordan, thanks for giving us some time here. I'm sure, much like you, we were hoping to still be watching Josh playing on a football field in the AFC title game, which would have been played here. Bills fans are still having a hard time getting over that. But I guess the first thing we should do is thank you for sending Josh a motivational text right before the wild card game. Congratulations on doing what it takes to become a Pro Bowl alternate. I mean, you know how to really put a stick in his eye better than anybody, man. So good on you for doing that, because he went out and played the perfect game against New England a few weeks ago.
Did he tell you that or something? Yeah.
No, Peter King had it in his weekly column.
Oh, he did. Okay. Yeah. Well, this is a guy who's gotten used to that chip being on his shoulder, and I don't know that he needs it, but I think it's helpful. So whether I'm reminding him, congratulating on him on the top 100, on being the 10th best quarterback or the 10th best player in the league. Congrats on breaking the top 10, which just probably pisses him off. Or being a Pro Bowl alternate, or being one of the best quarterbacks in those types of things just fire him up. So, I think that there's a role that I can play throughout the year. And sometimes that's just simply stoking the fire.
Yeah, you've been on you've obviously coached him at a close level for a couple of years now. You've always told us, he's the most physically gifted quarterback in the league. Now, with the two games he played against New England here at the end of the season, the one in Foxborough, and then this one in the playoffs, the wild card, the level that he was playing at in just those two games, and then the Chiefs game was unbelievable as well. Where do you see? I mean, I told Browning, I think maybe consistency. He's got to the point where he's consistent throughout four quarters. He's taken the easy shot easier and quicker now. He takes the check down, takes the easy completion a little quicker than he did. But I'm telling you what, those three games, the divisional round, the wild card round, and the second game against the Patriots in Foxborough, I've never seen a quarterback play at that level that he did in those three games. It was absolutely amazing. And what's next?
Well, I think it started the second half of Tampa, to be honest. And I know the Atlanta game, we all wanted to see a blowout, and it wasn't. And there's some weather and stuff, but he's just evolving. I think when quarterbacks are younger, they're developing. And then once you get to a place where you're pretty developed, then it's just, what are you going to evolve your game to? And Steve, just to correct you a little bit, I actually said that he's the most physically gifted athlete to ever play the position.
Right.
I said that in an interview with Sports Illustrated, and then that got clipped and put on social media. And I said it, I think, 2 years ago. Now, I said it behind closed doors during draft prep. But I said it in the media, and I got a lot of flack for it, I guess. I don't know. I don't even go on Twitter, but a bunch of people, said stuff about it. And I think that's probably that statement's probably looking a lot more accurate right now when we see him run the way that he does. Not just, he's not breaking big runs because everyone fell and he's fast. He's creating these runs, right? He's cutting back. He's setting up blocks. He's a runner. And then we see the throws that he makes, and then we see just physically where he is, being probably close to 250, 245, whatever he is, and 6'5". And then with the arm. So I do believe that we've never seen an athlete like this at this position. People who want to say that, well, Cam Newton never at any point threw it and had this type of control on the ball. Cam Newton was not as good a runner, in my opinion, and was never as fast as Josh is right now at top end speed. So I really do think that he's the best athlete to ever play the position. He's developed a lot the last few years. Ken Dorsey, Brian Dable, all these people that have been played a huge role in his development. But now what he's really evolving to, really the last 2 years, what I try and talk about, not to give away trade secrets here, but is the theme for the last 2 years has really been about control. And so we got to control three things as a quarterback when you're at the level that he's at. You've got to control the ball. That's not just accuracy. That's the tempo on the ball, right? Threw the ball really hard in college. Okay, so that's, controlling the football is where it ends up from an accuracy standpoint, the tempo that we put on it, the trajectory that we put underneath it. We don't just put trajectory under deep balls, put trajectory under all sorts of throws. So that control, right? And then be able to control it in the elements. The second thing we got to control is on the mental side of things. Now, he's incredibly intelligent. He picks things up really quickly. I'm sure you guys have heard story after story of how smart this kid is or whatever. So he's gotten really in control of that offense, I think, pretty early on. And I think it speaks to him, but it speaks to the type of teacher that Brian Daboll is. I think he's a fantastic teacher. So that's the part that he's got to control mentally. The biggest issue that we've seen since he really, found his stroke and got really accurate, the biggest issue we've seen the last, up until last year, was controlling your emotions. And getting too fired up, wanting it too bad, fighting to create a play that's maybe not there to be made right now. Whether it's the Houston playoff game, taking sacks, trying to make a play. Last year, we saw that creep up. Early on in his career, when he would roll right, he would throw some incredible throws. He would throw some interceptions. He would take a bunch of unnecessary hits, and he'd get away with a couple because they get batted down. What we've seen is the evolution of him and how well he controls his emotions in the game. That last game versus Kansas City is the example. Never at any point did his face change. Never at any point did he freak out. He was just in complete control of his emotions, which allowed him to be in control of his decision-making. I think he played really 8 quarters of perfect football. And then it allowed him to control the ball and just be deadly accurate. So that's been the linchpin for him. To long answer here, the final answer to your question, where do we go from here? I don't know. I don't think he's ever entered into a season in complete control of the ball and complete control of his decision-making, and more importantly, in complete control of his emotions, no matter how big the moment is. With those reps and that experience, I don't know. I think we would see him in the Super Bowl next year.
What happens if Brian Daboll is no longer a part of the conversation? Walk through us about like the best case scenario for transition with a new offensive coordinator and worst case.
Well, I don't know a whole lot what's going on in that building and all that. And I don't know what's my information to share, but I'll just say this: if Brian Daboll leaves, it's not going to catch a bunch of people off guard. It's not going to go, wait, what? I mean, he was interviewing last year, right? And so I don't know what the plan is. That's not my role or conversation to have. But I do know this: if there was if there's a group of 2 or 3 general managers in this league that I trust to make a super important decision and have it be executed correctly and get the person that you want to do the thing you want them to do, Brandon Beane's first, second, or third on that list for me. So I do know they've had plenty of time to prepare for this. And I do know that the people in that building, starting with Brandon on down, are people they're on a little hot streak here of making fantastic decisions consecutively.
And then, Jordan, you mentioned control of his emotions. And for me, I always thought that was probably his last hurdle. And he seemed to be his own worst enemy with that because how he's hyper competitive. He's not just competitive. He's hyper competitive. I mean, he wants to get it all every time. And I thought that sometimes worked against him in keeping those emotions in check. How did he make that transformation late in the year here to fully capture that? Because sometimes when they would fall behind early, you're in a 10-0 hole, you could almost see him saying, all right, I got to make a play. I got to make something happen. You know what I mean? And that even keel sometimes would get compromised, even if it was just for a series. And he seemed to push that aside, and all of a sudden it clicked for him where his emotional state, was right there, flatlined all the way. Not in a bad way, but to kind of keep him apprised of everything he's responsible for. Why did it change here late in the year? What was the key, do you think?
Well, you've got to get reps at that. And let's say that we're out here throwing in the offseason. I can't simulate an experience that makes him ultra competitive and makes him feel like he's going to die or he's going to win this. I just can't create that environment.
Right.
That really and coach can't create that on the practice field either. And so, I can try and simulate it in golf and say, hey, if you miss this putt, you have to do X, Y, Z. But again, that's not it. And so you only get those reps on game day, and you actually only get those reps on important games. I don't know that you can get him to a place where he feels that way versus to get any quarterback to a place where they feel that type of pressure, that type of need to win when you're playing Atlanta. Like, it kind of has to happen versus the Patriots. It's kind of got to happen versus the Chiefs. It's kind of got to happen versus the Bengals. Like, it's got to happen versus a good team. So you get a limited set of reps. And so, as we talk, it's really, how do we take advantage of those reps to get better at control? So I don't coach anybody, and I'm not coaching them on mechanics during the season. We just talk about the control. How are we getting better at that? And the complete control of your emotions, the ball, and your decision making. And so I just think that really played out here towards the end of the season for two reasons. One, because he's been cognizant of it. He's been thinking about it. I'm sure he's had countless conversations, whether it be with the coaches, whether it be with Trubisky, Barkley the year before. Just, he's a football guy that has football conversations. The second part of it, though, of why maybe this has panned out late in the season, is the second element of that is trusting other people around you to make plays. And whether it's, having, I think it was Diggs was out, but then Isaiah McKenzie steps up, right? Or, different running backs. Breida came in and made an impact. The defense got some takeaways. You think about that Chiefs game in week 5, the defense had 2 takeaways. Those weren't bad throws by Mahomes. Those were takeaways. They took it away. Poyer didn't need to take that ball off his hands and score. It would have been easy to not pick that off. He picked it off and created a turnover and points. And Broussard created that turnover that he tipped to himself. So I think it's a combination of his development and evolution, and also continuing to trust the guys around him. And there's, that's a good team. They don't need their quarterback to make a play every play. Sometimes that screen is going to work. Sometimes that check down is going to get 15. Sometimes that run play is going to get a fresh set of downs. Sometimes that defense is going to get a takeaway. So I just think it's a combination of those two things, his evolution, and then also him continuing and learning how to trust in all those pieces around him.
I've made the assertion that even last year at the AFC Championship game in Kansas City, and of course this year when they had the game all but won before it went away, that this team is good enough right now on any given Sunday or Saturday or Monday or Thursday to beat anybody in the league with the crew they've got now. They were last year as well, but you got to play well on game day. And with Josh playing at this level, after a game that goes the way this last game did for Buffalo, you're getting all these people like, hey, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do. This team doesn't need to do anything different than what it has been doing over the last 5 years, because that's what got them to this point. And they are an unbelievable football team. I'm asking you, do you see anything they need to do differently than what they've been doing for 4 or 5 years, than going forward, than they haven't done to this point?
Yes, there's a massive thing they have to do better next year, and it's going to start at the beginning of the offseason. They have to play that game in Orchard Park,
right?
Which means they cannot play down to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They cannot play down. I was at that Tennessee game. They cannot play. There's 2 drives in that Tennessee game where it just missed. So they kicked a field goal. Well, okay, you can't kick field goals. So they cannot play down to any competition next year. So getting that, whatever it is, locked in mentally at a place where every single week feels like New England. So whoever, I haven't looked at their schedule, I don't know, but they can't play down to Jacksonville. They can't play down to Tennessee. They can't play down to the Steelers. It's going to be what they do in September and October, because to your point, Steve, we kind of know how they play in December and January. They need to play that way in September. This should be, we say things like, oh, this should be a Super Bowl team, or this is a Super Bowl team. I look at it like, hold on, before you talk about playoffs, no, this should be a 14-3 team, right? Because that should probably lock up the number 1 seed. And so I think it really comes down to doing the simple things correctly and being able to get across the board everybody to play at the level they can each week. And again, Brandon Beane, I speak highly about him all the time, but I think Sean McDermott's the kind of guy that, hey, he's going to get their attention. Hey, all this stuff we're talking about, guys, we're playing a lesser opponent. Somebody doesn't have a win. All that stuff I talk about 1 week at a time, treat it all the same. Well, now everybody in that locker room, coaching staff included, has some context for just how important that Jacksonville Jaguars game was. An AFC game early in the year. You have to win that game. And so I think he'll have everybody's attention. And the leaders on that team are going to step up. And so that's the thing they have to do different. We can talk about, squib kick or how to play, prevent defense all day. But the reality is that game shouldn't have been in Kansas City on a year when Kansas City did the same thing, played down early to competition in the year.
So, Jordan, we talked to Josh, his season wrap-up press conference the other day, and he talked about, taking a couple of weeks off and then getting back out there with you. And the one thing he mentioned was, getting his mechanics right. you mentioned that, he's evolving. There's a strong foundation to, his abilities as a quarterback now, based in part on his training with you every offseason. But he mentioned mechanics again. So are we talking at his stage in his career now purely refinement of those mechanics? You're not building him from the ground up anymore. We're talking, he's in the refinement stage, right?
Correct. Yeah. So last offseason, there was a type of throw in particular that was, for him, you're breaking down an NFL season where somebody completed 70% of their balls. You're not seeing a ton of things to work on. But we had found something with how he was hitching and climbing in the pocket on a specific throw, specific trajectory. There was an opportunity from a mechanical standpoint. And it was, I believe when it comes to throwing mechanics, the issues that quarterbacks have, it's in the movement that precedes the throw. It's not necessarily the throwing motion. So when we talk about pitchers versus quarterbacks, pitchers don't move before they throw. They don't transfer weight before they throw. They just push off the mound and go. Quarterbacks have all sorts of movements before they throw, right? And a myriad of them. So we found something that was something, okay, cool. This is an issue. Let's figure out what's causing that. So when you hitch, what muscles are we using that's actually pulling you forward? Oh, it's your left adductor, okay, which runs along the inseam of your left leg. Okay, how do we strengthen that and build a connection so when you move, your hips stay level? It was that type of detail. This offseason I have in my mind, but we'll do what we do every offseason. What I do with Burrow and these other guys is we'll sit down, we'll watch a bunch of stuff. We'll come to a conclusion. I'm a consultant, so I'm not going to tell him what to do or any of these guys what to do. I'm here to say, hey, look, here's what I found. What have you found? Let's get to the root of what causes that. And then, what are the situations when that comes up? So with Josh, and that he missed a throw in Tennessee. Diggs was on his right, and it was like a curl, and it just kind of one-hopped. It just didn't get there quite enough. So he got wide. His base got wide. Okay, well, what's causing the base to get wide? What about that progression? What about that movement caused the base to get wide that inhibited you from being able to really block off that left hip and pull your right hip around and blah, 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 all the things that we teach. So it's really with him, it's going to go, what are the 2 or 3 times that something came up? What caused that? And then how do we build muscle memory to where when that happens again, you don't think about it, you're just reacting and you're doing it the way that we just, you determine that you want to do it. And so that's really the process for guys at his level. The majority of the quarterbacks I work are better right now when I'm training them than I ever was. Josh is certainly no exception to that. And so that's just been the best way for me to train guys that I'm not giving them my experience. I can't explain to Josh what it's like to play in the AFC Championship game. I don't know. I never have. But in terms of helping guys identify what that is, what the root cause of it is, and then we build a plan around it.
So you mentioned also that you work with Joe Burrow. He's playing this weekend. What are your thoughts on his game this weekend, the kind of player he is? I know I don't know if Josh and Joe know each other or work out together at any point, but what are your thoughts on Joe Burrow? He's headed into the AFC Championship game in Kansas City, and what are your expectations for him?
Well, he's got a completely different game than Josh, completely different build. But I think it's going to be the same result, similar result to, I think it's going to come down to the last couple plays. That unwavering self-generated confidence that Josh had just didn't matter. It's unflappable. This play is going to work. We're going to score. Joe has the exact same thing. He's proved it in college, and he's proved it so far early in a very young career. And he threw for 470, something like that, a couple weeks ago when they played the Chiefs and they beat the brakes off the Chiefs. The difference in that game, Cincinnati created turnovers. Difference in the Week 5 matchup between the Bills and Chiefs, Buffalo created turnovers. So that's going to be the name of the game. And since he's coming off of a 3-turnover performance on the defensive side of the ball, they created those takeaways. But as far as Joe's concerned, if this turns into a game, let's say Kansas City just runs that defensive game plan back. It's like they said, we're going to take Diggs out of this game. And then here comes the other guy with 4 touchdowns and 200 yards. If they want to take Jamar Chase out of the game, I think T. Higgins is the same thing or better. So it'd be interesting to see what the Chiefs do. Obviously, that secondary is a little suspect. This game's going to come down to, can Bengals create 1 or 2 turnovers, and can Cincinnati? They're not going to block Kansas City, but can they protect him on the key 3rd downs? And when they have that shot play dialed and they get the look they want, did they actually block them on those plays? He's still going to get sacked 4 or 5 times at least, but it's on those key plays. Can they hold protection long enough for Joe to put the ball down the field?
Awesome, Jordan. Why don't you just get a plug-in for QBSummitCamp.com with your summer tour coming up here?
Yeah, I'm doing a tour around the country, 12 stops, all the stuff I teach older guys. I break down for middle school and high school quarterbacks. So as far as East Coast is concerned, coming to Nashville and Chicago and Charlotte, those are as east as I go. And would love to have any young guys. So starting around 11 or 12 up through high school. It's the best camp in the country, just because I really break it down. We start at the very beginning. We don't do cool drills. We don't chase kids around. It's teaching them the fundamentals of how to move and how to throw.
Awesome.
All right,
QBsummitcamp.com is the website to go to if you're interested. And maybe you can catch up with Jordan when he comes east of the Mississippi here. Jordan, thanks as always for the time. We appreciate it in terms of breaking down some of the things on Josh's to-do list each and every offseason. We'll catch up with you down the line.
Thanks, Jordan.
Yeah, I'm bummed. I got to figure out some flight credits because I was supposed to fly to Buffalo this weekend. Figure out what to do with those credits.
We're all bummed right now.
I was making plans too. Yeah,
he's playing at Pebble Beach in the Pro-Am. Maybe you could just drive down the road and meet him there.
I just talked to him. Yeah, he's landing here, flying up there, and that's going to be awesome. He's going to be. I wouldn't stand along the right side of the tee box.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, touch the club in a couple of months.
Yeah,
I'll
good
just
to know.
call it right now. 4 right.
Very good. Thanks, Jordan, for the
All
time.
right,
we'll
Jordan,
catch up with you down the line.
See you guys.
All right,
You
that's
guys are the
Jordan
best.
Palmer, Josh Allen's QB trainer in the offseason.